Do my best.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Well, listen, the audio is for the video, so I don't know if it's maybe sitting bed that helps us with the audio.
Do I need to be sitting
We
for
can
it?
stay standing, we can just move the mic a little bit.
So we'll move back.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. So good morning. And I messed this up already. One moment, I apologize. Now let me push the right button. So as you mentioned, I'm Melissa Craig, Vice President of Advocacy at BIPAC. I oversee our PAC and grassroots services. Prior to this position, I was in charge of our PAC services, so PAC's really my area of expertise. And I'll have to ask you all to help keep me on time because I could talk about PACs all day long, honestly. So, and as Dave mentioned, stealing ideas and being candid, I fully agree with both of those, and was going to kind of say the same thing to you all. The stealing ideas, that's one of the things that I love about PACs. You know, it's not necessarily everybody competing. When you get PAC professionals together, everybody's happy to talk about what they're doing, happy to share ideas. It's absolutely wonderful. So I think that that's a great thing. So absolutely, I agree with that. And be candid. I'd rather you all please ask me questions, participate, you know, share your ideas and everything as we go. I have no need to stand up here and just talk to you if you'd rather make this a candid conversation. So it can be whatever we'd like it to be. I think we're a small enough group, so feel free to, any input would be helpful. A little bit about BIPAC. A lot of you, I heard familiar names and all of that as we run around the room, so I think a lot of you are probably familiar with BIPAC. As it was mentioned, we were founded in 1963 as the first business political action committee. We do still have a PAC today, but we also do a lot on the advocacy side, providing trade associations and corporations around the nation with PAC and grassroots services, in addition to doing a lot on the political side, which Bo will probably talk about later. And we have our state partners, Pennsylvania Business Council being one, within about 47 states right now, and Mackenzie will talk a little bit more about that as that's their areas of expertise. So a little bit of an outline today. We'll talk about revitalizing a static PAC. I think that a lot of people, you know, this will be helpful to a lot of you. There always comes a time where your PAC is kind of, it's like, what can I do next? It's been running kind of as it is, but how can you take it to the next level? So we'll talk about that, and then solicitations, of course, and communicating with PAC eligibles and with your members, which helps with retention. Conveying value, very important for retaining members and gaining new members. And then technology, which I think is very important in today's world. We'll just touch on that a little bit. And then leveraging an election year can often be a lot easier to solicit and get people involved in an election year. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of this. Now, before we dive in a little bit, I just want to ask around the room, how many of you have both a federal and a state PAC? Okay, and so the rest of you, how many of you have just a state PAC? And how many have just a federal PAC? Nobody. Okay, excellent. So I will add a caveat that I am not a Pennsylvania state PAC law expert. So I know the federal PAC law in and out, but I do know basics of your state PAC law. That corporations can't give, but otherwise you can have anybody contribute and all of that. So you'll see some things in here that may not be relevant to the state PAC, and I've kind of italicized that. But I think that the general thought of running a PAC and the ideas and things like that is the same across the board, whether it's a state or a federal PAC. So revitalizing a static PAC. This is something, I think everybody, as I mentioned, everybody hits a point where it's kind of like, what do I do next? What can I do to really go to the next level? How do I do more? And it's always important to take a step back and look at where you're at, look at your goals, and figure out how to get there. Surveying your current members or your eligibles is a great way to get that little jump start, to see where you're doing things right, where there's room for improvement. It's always helpful. But asking your potential contributors can be really, really enlightening. The surveys that I've done in the past and surveys that I've seen that a lot of BIPAC's members have done, it's really interesting. A lot of the things that you think that your members or your eligibles may be interested in may be the complete opposite. So that's really helpful in taking your PAC to the next level. Messaging, speaking to your target audience. That's something we'll talk a little bit more with communicating, but it's really important that you look at what you're saying to your potential contributors, and your members as well. You know, it's important, once you get them in, you don't want to stop thinking about what you can do to keep them happy. Especially, you know, if you need to get a lot of you I know probably cannot do or don't do payroll deductions. So you have to make sure that you get them in the next year and the year after that and all of that. So you want to make sure that your messaging is speaking to your audience and being effective. Realistic expectations. Of course, you know, a lot of the larger corporate PACs, you know, that I'll work with, they will say, oh, you know, we want to be $1 million PAC. Okay. When they may be like a $250,000 cycle PAC. You know, is that really why do you want these certain goals that you have, and are they realistic? You know, do you want it just so you can say you can be $1 million PAC or whatever, you know, the equivalent would be, or, you know, is that something that you really need? Materials and branding. Take a look at all of that you're doing, the materials and branding that you have on hand, and make sure that that's effective. Make sure that it's, you know, up to date. If you haven't looked at your logo or your materials since the 1950s, you know, giving that a refresh or a facelift may be helpful. Technology, we'll go into this a little bit later, but again, make sure that, you know, you are communicating with the current, in the current environment. You have to stay competitive, of course, with all of the other messages that are flowing, you know, that your audiences are seeing as well. Giving guidelines. I think these are so important, having suggested giving guidelines. A lot of people don't really, you know, when you're asking them, they don't necessarily know, is $5 enough to give to the PAC? You know, is $100 expected? You know, what do you kind of expect? Many people really, you know, have not had experience with PACs in the past, so they really just don't understand what the expectation or what, you know, their peers are giving. So if you use suggested giving guidelines, then that will help to increase your contributions. Educate about the political process. Education is hands down, I think, the most important. Sometimes I think that we all forget, because we're so entrenched in the day-to-day, you know, of the political process and what's going on, that we sometimes forget that other people are not. So you need to educate them, help them to understand why this is so important to them. If they don't understand why they should be giving their personal money for this political cause, they're not going to give. So educate them first. So going into solicitations, of course, that's one of the most important things. So you need the money in order for your PAC to be successful. Your goals. We touched a little bit about this, but two of the main goals that you will consider are, do you want to raise more money to increase your receipts, or do you want to increase your participation? And I think those two goals, thinking about them and determining which is more important to your organization and your PAC, is going to be very helpful, because it's going to define your solicitation strategy. Maybe you do need more money, but right now, you know, you just want to get more people in so that they're engaged, and, you know, you figure that if you can educate them, then, you know, they'll stay with you for a while and maybe increase their contributions down the road. So that would be the increasing the participation. If that's your goal, you would want a strategy that's more like, you know, $20.14 in 2014, which I'm sure you've all kind of heard of that type of strategy. But, you know, get the low dollar amounts, get them in, and then show them the value. And then that will, in turn, raise your receipts. But if you really are like, you know, it's an election year, we need more money, we have to contribute to these candidates, we need these candidates to get in, to be elected into office this year, so we have to have the dollars, you know, you'll need to look at other ways of doing that. You'll need to find, you know, certain people who are able to give the larger dollar amounts. You'll need to focus on them. You'll want to do campaigns, you know, think about doing campaigns to get people to increase their contributions, you know, provide incentives for those people who are, you know, giving at a higher level, and things like that. So your goal is going to define your strategy. So it's very, very important to look at what your goal is going to be. Keep in mind your audience. This is another really, really important one. You know, our president and CEO, Greg Casey, he always talks about, you know, when you have your phone, when you pick this up in the morning and you open up your email and you see, you know, you've got a bunch of emails, what decides which one you open first? It's who it's from. Typically, you know, if you've got an email from your boss, you're going to open that one right up. If you've got an email from your best friend, you know, you're going to open that up and skip over the other ones. So the person who is actually doing the asking for your PAC contributions is key. A lot of people, you know, the PAC professional or whatever will be the one that sends out the email message asking or the letter asking for the money, when in fact you really need to find someone that resonates with the audience that you're targeting. And that is really, really important. You're not going to get them to give if you can't even get them to read your messaging to them. So that's very important. Another thing to steer clear of, which I'm sure you all have heard, so you don't want, if you're sending out like an email, for example, you don't want to have the subject line say PAC in it. That's important as well. You want to make sure that you can grab them in, get them in to read your message, and then you have a better chance. But you have to get them to at least open it. You need to address issues that are important to your audience as well. Make it relevant. Not only, it doesn't matter just who is sending the message, but it needs to be relevant to them. If you've got a certain audience, I use the Salesforce versus the IT guys or the R&D team, they're going to respond to different messages, and different issues affect them. So you need to think about that and do as much as you can to target. Support from senior leadership. This is another really, really key thing. There are a lot of key things, that I think are important to PACs, and if you have all of them, then that's how you're going to be successful. And if you don't, then that's what you need to work on. And senior leadership buy-in is one of them. I've worked with several PACs where the senior leadership is just not supportive. They don't think the PAC is important. They don't care about being involved in the political process, and that PAC has a tough time. That PAC professional, the person who's running the PAC, has a really tough time surviving in that environment. So if your senior leadership is already bought in, you're good to go. If not, then you want to work on getting them to see it as a priority and help them to understand that, because if they see it as a priority, they'll be able to convey that to the rest of your organization and to your audience that you're looking to get contributions from, and you'll be more successful. Make it easy to contribute. People are not going to want to click through a million times on a website. They're not going to want to, have to make sure that they find an envelope and find a stamp to be able to mail a contribution back in. Make it easy for them. Give them no reason not to send you that contribution. Make it as easy as possible if it's an online contribution. Consider providing a stamped, a self-addressed stamped envelope if you're sending out a hard copy of a solicitation as well for them to send their check in. Do everything you can to remove the barriers. Provide incentives that members want. This is another one, that I think you see varying things in the PAC world with this. You'll get people who want to give the little tchotchkes away, or they'll have these certain giveaways, and I always say that I think that some of those things are great for marketing your PAC. That's not going to get people to join. I don't think anybody has ever joined because they get a pen. So think about that. Think about where your money is best spent. People want information, they want access, so provide them with, and the great thing about that is a lot of that is free, so you can provide them with insider information updates as an incentive to join. That may draw them in. If they're able to do things like attend a dinner or a special reception with somebody that they find important, that could be an incentive to join as well. So look at your audience, see what will speak to them, but make sure you're not wasting money on little things in an attempt to get them to join. Suggested giving guidelines we already talked about, but I'll reiterate that. I think it's pretty important, at least with corporate PACs. It's not as relevant in the trade association world, or not as easy to incorporate, but any way that you're able to just kind of, even if you just put the little amounts for them to check off, I think that's very helpful, rather than just leaving them with a blank box to fill out. Educate first. I should have put this one at the top on the solicitation tips because I think it's so important, as I mentioned. Do that educating. Make sure that they understand the political process and they know why the PAC is important. Make sure they know what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. Convey as much information as you can. And you want to do this before you ask them for money. As I mentioned, think about the average person. Think about your friends. Think about your family. If they're like my friends and family, they're really not involved in the political process at all. They don't understand these things. They're always like, what's a PAC? What do you do now? It's hard to explain it. So they're not living and breathing it like we are. And most of your audience are not living and breathing it like we are. You need to make them understand it and make them see why it's important to them. So educate them on the issues that are affecting your organization or your industry, and then tell them what the PAC is doing to help. And then ask them for a contribution. So don't forget to always educate first. Some best practices here, the italicized ones may not be relevant to the Pennsylvania state PACs because they talk about the restricted class. But for those of you who do have federal PACs, make sure you're reviewing your restricted class regularly because you want to make sure that you've got the broadest audience possible to be able to ask money from. So make sure you check on that and see if you're able to expand it at all. That's always helpful. Do a solicitation at least annually. I think it's always helpful to do your annual big campaign for 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it would be. Your big push where you're educating first, then you're sending a letter to ask them for their money from somebody that they recognize, then send a follow-up letter from someone who's also resonates with them. And just have this whole big PAC education thing going on for a few weeks. But then at the same time, don't forget, when you're sending the rest of your communications, do subtle solicitations, subtle asks for money. Always include that in there. If you do a newsletter for the state PACs who are able to put that in pretty much anything, since you can solicit anybody, include a little snippet about the PAC. Give a little update and say, hey, you want to get involved? Learn more here or contribute here. So make sure you're always including those little subtle pushes in there. It's very helpful. Make sure you tie the message to issues. Again, that's another way that you can do those subtle solicitations. Talk about the issues. Give them updates. Talk about what's happening in your industry and with your organization. Talk about what bills are on the floor or what legislation has just passed and how it affects you. And then say, hey, look, here's how the PAC has helped with that. Or here's how the PAC can help with that. We need you so that we can do more and be more successful with this kind of thing. So always look for those opportunities. And then, of course, your legal disclaimers. I of course know exactly what they are for the federal side, but for the state PACs in Pennsylvania, you'll of course want to, I'm sure you all know them, but make sure you consult your legal counsel. Basics of raising PAC dollars. It's pretty easy, but the first one, again, is italicized because it's only relevant to the federal PACs. Expanding your solicitable class. Obviously, those of you who don't have a restricted class, you can't really expand it because it's already pretty as big as it's going to get. But for those of you who do, look at ways that you're able to broaden it. See if, there are a lot of companies who they say that they just want to solicit their senior leadership. But legally, they can go down farther in the chain, and be able to solicit those other people. So make the case for that. People want to get involved. And just do as much as you can to have your audience be as big as you can. Raise your participation rates. That's another way that you can raise more money. Clearly, if you get more people to give, your receipts are going to increase. So just do as much as you can to get people to participate, get them in the door, and then hopefully do everything you can to retain them. And then of course ask for more money. You can ask potential donors. Look at who is giving, who's been giving for a while at a certain sustained level. See if they consider giving more. Or again, look at those suggested giving guidelines. Look at what you're asking from people and consider increasing that amount. And effective messaging is key. You can ask for more money all you want, but if you're not giving them a reason to give more, they're not going to give. So, again, tie the issues in and make sure it's relevant to that audience. And that may mean doing specific letters for different audiences. You may have 10 different letters that go out to different people, but that's going to be effective. Here are some innovative ideas. Again, I don't know Pennsylvania state law in and out, so I can't guarantee that these things would be legal here, doing like a raffle type of thing. But a lot of federal PACs are able to do that depending on what states they are in and what their gaming laws are. So just to kind of show you a couple examples of what PACs that we work with have done. Baxter always does an interesting enrollment campaign. They usually do it around a sports theme. I think they may be doing tennis this year, I can't remember, but they're get in the game theme and then double the green. So we help them to write solicitation letters around basketball. don't get caught in the backcourt and all that kind of stuff. So think about those things. Sometimes, politics and PACs and all of that is not going to grab your audience, but maybe doing something fun that resonates with them will. So consider doing a themed enrollment campaign where you can just do a full 6 weeks around fun stuff. As you can see, American Chemistry Council, they also do Get in the Game, and they do some really fun stuff with that. They do it only for their employees in their DC office, but they do a raffle, and then they also have a kickoff event that's baseball themed. They do baseball park food, and they were going to get the Nationals mascots in, but funny story, they were too tall to fit into the building, so that didn't work out for them. Very strange, but it was a good idea. It was a great idea, and it would have been really neat. And then at the end of it, they'll take all of their PAC members to a baseball game. They get the afternoon off, and they'll take them there. It's a great way to just tie everything all in together. So think of these creative ways. Again, steal it. You guys can try some of this type of stuff. APSCU, the Association for Private Sector Colleges and Universities, they also do a raffle every year, and it draws people in. You don't have to do a raffle, again, if it's not allowed or it's not a good idea. You don't have to do something like that, but you can still make it fun. You can still, do something with a baseball theme. You don't have to have prizes or anything. You can have an event that's just, around baseball or whatever is important to your audience. And then you can just see Bridgepoint has a lot of different benefits that resonate with their audience, such as parking. That kind of, I thought that was a really innovative idea, and it's been very successful for them. Parking's a premium there. So they were able to get it so that their Capital Club members of their PAC have these special parking spaces. There's lots of stuff that you can do that doesn't cost money. A lot of this does cost money. But Baxter doesn't do anything major. They just do, a fun little theme, and that doesn't cost anything. So think about ways that you can draw people in and be a little bit more innovative. Communicating with your eligibles and your members. Communicating is important for retention of your members. You can't just, get their money and then have them just sit out there and not know what you're doing. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know where their money's going, and they want to know how successful the PAC has been. So make sure you use a lot of different communications vehicles. You're going to have people who still like the good old-fashioned, mailed newsletter that they can hold in their hand and look at and read. And you're going to have people who want to see social media or who are, with the cutting edge technology. So you'll have to just find a variety of communications vehicles to be able to reach the largest amount of audience possible. Everybody, has different preferences and all of that. So you just want to make sure that you're not communicating in just one way. You don't want to just send out emails because you may be missing a large population. So just think about what more you can do with that. Keep them updated. It's really, really important. Like I mentioned, they want to know, the surveys have shown they really want to know what's going on. They want to know where their money is going. They want to know how the decisions are being made. Just as much information as you can possibly give them. Transparency is, I've noticed it being a real big push among the PAC community with all of the PACs that I've spoken with. Their audiences want to see this transparency. And that's going to get people to give more. If they know what's going on, if they know where their money's going, if they know what you're doing, if they know how decisions are being made. I've heard a lot of people who, their audiences, their PAC eligibles think, oh, it's just, the PAC is just a way that the CEO or the government relations team gets to just go off on golf outings and this and that. And, that's not true. So you need to dispel those myths. There's just a couple of examples of newsletters and annual report up here as well. So just two great ways to communicate. I know that, a lot of you probably, the PAC is not your primary responsibility, so your time and resources are limited. But just do as much as you can, repurpose things as much as you can so that you're able to do some communicating, because it really is key to retaining your membership. Issue and insider information. That is the number one desire of PAC eligibles or your people that you are soliciting as an incentive. They want to know, they want to be able to receive some insider information about what's going on in Washington or what's going on in Harrisburg. They want to know the special things that not everybody gets to know. They also want access, to have if they're able to go to a fundraiser with a candidate, they would love that. So let your PAC members do that type of thing. Let your contributors help you so that you don't have to go to as many fundraisers and events. If you're able to have a special event for them once a year, it's great. If you do an annual meeting or a big convention or something where your members or a large group come together, have something special for your PAC members there, whether that be a special lunch or internet access or just something small. It's great to recognize them. Make sure you communicate public policy issues as well. They want to know what is affecting your organization, and they want to know how it relates to the PAC. So we've talked about that some. And then market the PAC as a tool to advance what you're doing. Make sure that they know that the PAC is actually helping the organization's long-term goals. They need to see it as relevant. They need to see it as important in order for you to get them to contribute and to continue to contribute. They have to see value in it. We've talked about targeting different audiences, so I won't go into this too much, but know your audience and make sure you know what's important to them. You can see on here, it's an example. It's a national organization, but they make sure to put in different information. They give an update on Washington, Florida, Northeast. They do things that are relevant to a broad audience because not everyone's going to care about just this Washington report. People want to know what's going on in their own backyards. They want to know what is specifically affecting the product they're making or the service that they're providing or what they're doing in their daily jobs or their daily lives. So try and find ways to convey that information to them. A couple of messaging tips. I won't go through all of these, but make sure you integrate your PAC, within your, make it a tool, make it important within your organization. Make sure that you're actually utilizing it for what it is supposed to be. And if it's really important to your organization and your goals, then that's going to convey to your audience as well. So make sure that it's a part of that. Use current and up-to-date information. That's a pretty obvious one. If you have a PAC website, for example, if you don't keep it up to date, you're not going to get people to come back to it. They're not going to keep reading your newsletters if it's not interesting information. They're not going to listen to what you say if it's just kind of the same old, same old. Conveying value. This one's important both for your current contributors and for your potential contributors. If they don't see value, and this kind of goes along with everything we've talked about up until this point, if they don't see value in the PAC, why are they going to give their personal money? You're having to get people to give their personal money. It's a very, very hard thing to do. But if they see value in it, then they're more likely to be able to part with that money and feel okay about it. Your grassroots program is a great way to start building that value because it's the education piece. If you're able to educate them utilizing your grassroots program and understanding the political process, if they can see what the differences that they're making by writing to their legislators or meeting with them or just voting and all of that, then they'll be more likely to make the connection to why the PAC is important. Because you can encourage them to take that next step. You can say, you've done all of this, it's been great, but here's something else that you can do. And again, educate first. Can't say it enough. And employees, I should mention that second bullet there, employees who participate in grassroots programs are a lot more likely to participate in the PAC and contribute to the PAC, and vice versa. Your PAC members are going to be more likely to take action when you ask them to. So if you're able to, take a look at who's doing what. If you can see who are your ones who are activating and engaging already on a grassroots level, have those people be your targets for PAC contributions. Likewise, if you see that you've got some champions who are contributing to your PAC always and everything, when you really need someone to call a legislator on an issue, they're going to be the ones who you're going to want to ask. Your issues are really important. That's kind of what drives everything that we all do. You're trying to get your issues moved toward. You're trying to educate on your issues to advance your agenda. So, educate your audiences on what those issues are educate them on what is affecting, you know, their day-to-day jobs and lives, because they don't understand it. You know, often we think that they do, but they'll just hear, you know, all of the chatter going on there about these social issues, and they don't understand it. They want to hear from you. They want you to educate them. So wherever they can get that credible information, they're going to really appreciate it. You know, they hear information on the news or from political parties, but they find their employer or, you know, an industry association to be the most credible source of information. So they want to hear from you. Make sure you're the ones that are telling them about these things and giving them the real story. Find out what your members or your eligibles want. Again, going back to the survey. I know when I was I ran an aerospace and defense PAC for a corporation, and I thought I knew what everybody wanted. I thought we were doing a good job. I thought that, you know, everyone had told me, oh yeah, we should do these, like you need to get these giveaways and get these expensive leather portfolios to give to people. And so I decided to do a survey one day of the eligibles and of the PAC members. It was really interesting to see what they wanted. And it was very different than what I'd been told or what I thought. So make sure you ask them. I mean, they're going to be the best person to tell you. Consider doing focus groups or targeted messaging to a small audience before rolling it out to a large audience. And make sure that you're on point. Because, you know, what you think may not work for the average person within your audience. So make sure you're asking that. Technology obviously is a big thing these days. To be honest, I don't know if state PACs are picking up on the social media bug a little bit more, but I know federal PACs absolutely are not. It's a tough thing. So you just got to find other ways to do it if social media is not your thing. If it is, then that is great. It's a great way to make sure that you are getting out there with those audiences and making sure that your message is being heard. I'm actually on the board of a Virginia state PAC, and I know it's very different than the federal PAC world. Social media is a big thing for us to be able to educate everybody and get them to come back and understand our issues and be bought in and want to contribute. So if for the state PACs in Pennsylvania, that's something you may want to consider. Federal PACs, of course, you'll want to look at other things. Here are some examples of websites. Not sure how many of you guys have a PAC web presence, but I think that is really important. So if you don't have a PAC web presence already, see what you can do to be able to get one. You know, just again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create a standalone PAC website. You could always just utilize your organization's website and put some information on there about the PAC. Keep that educational information so that they can always go back and see it whenever they want to. Something to keep in mind, though, one of our big things that we say at BIPAC all the time when we're working with our members on their websites is you can build it, but they won't necessarily come. It's not the field of dreams. So you do have to communicate with them and drive them to your websites. But if you can get them there to look at information, election information, which I'll go into a little bit more in a moment, but get them to your website. Make sure that your communications are always driving them there, because if you have a way to contribute there or information about contributing there, hey, at least you've gotten them onto your website. So that's one less step that they would have to take. It's also a great way to help with your transparency. A lot of the transparency info that your PAC members or eligibles want is very dry info. You know, lists of who you've contributed to or who's on your board. It's not things that you necessarily want to like put out a newsletter all about. It's not this fun, great story. But if you have it available, they're going to feel better about it. So if you're able to put stuff like that on your website, that's a great step. HTML emails and newsletters. If you're able to do this kind of thing, sending something out in an HTML version versus a PDF where you have to open a file is always helpful. Since the HTML version will just show up, they're a little bit more likely to just look at it rather than, again, remove any barriers that you can. If they don't have to open a file, they'll be more likely to look at it. So do whatever you can to make it easy for them, including with your communications. And then social media, as I mentioned. If you're able to do any of these things, it's definitely a way to reach the younger generation. You know, they're, as you know, they're on there big time, and that's just their way of communicating. I'm not a big social media person. I barely check my Facebook, but a lot of people do. And so they will see that stuff pop up in their feeds. They'll follow your Twitter and see it pop up into their Twitter feed. So do what you can with that. It can be a big undertaking because you do have to keep it up to date, and you know, they're not going to pay attention to it if you're not continually updating it. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do something like this, that you have the manpower to do it. Maybe it's something that you just incorporate in with your existing social media every so often. Have some information about the PAC on there. So, again, it's an election year, as Dave mentioned, in case any of you haven't noticed, it is. It's a great time to get people to give to your PAC because they're already thinking about politics. You know, as I've mentioned several times before, politics is not on the brain of the average person. Those of us who are in it and do it every day of our lives, you know, we understand it and we get it and we see the value in it. Other people, it's kind of just in the back of their minds. You know, they may see some of the big talks and the big headline news stories, and that's when they'll think about it. But otherwise, they don't necessarily understand how it affects them. But in an election year, it becomes more top of mind because there are more headlines. It is more prominent in what they see and in their everyday lives. So use this year to your advantage. A lot of you may not be able to send voting records or candidate comparisons on the corporate side to all of your employees, but perhaps you would like to do that for your PAC eligibles or your PAC members as a member benefit. So give them that information. Provide them with as much information as you can about the candidates and about voting to help them to be able to make decisions for themselves. Of course, you don't want to say, you know, vote for or vote against typically, unless you choose to do that. But, you know, you can give them as much information as possible, and they'll look to you as a credible resource for this information. So do as much as you can with that and tie it in with your PAC as much as you can. Because again, it's more of that connecting the dots. They'll understand that, you know, oh, okay, the PAC is to elect good candidates. So again, show the value. People are listening right now. You know, again, when things are front and center in their minds, they're going to be more likely to pay attention. So now's the time to get your message out there. You could do a push right before the elections, or, you know, if you have a big election that you're trying to shape, you know, you want one candidate, do a push and say, we need this because we need this person to be elected. We need to help them. That's going to help to get people rallied behind you and have them understand why they should give and have them be more compelled to give. Make sure you include election information. You can see some of BIPAC's tools down here that, you know, but anything like this, you can include links to where they should register to vote. You know, include just information about their polling places or where they can find it. You know, a lot of times people they can Google and do that, but some people don't realize that and they want to just go to a certain place and find all of that information very easily. So if you have it all housed in one little area, and oh, by the way, there's some information about the PAC while you're looking at this, it's a great way to get their attention. Make sure you follow up as well. That's important. You don't want to do this whole big push about, you know, hey, the elections are coming up. It's super important to get involved in the PAC because we need to get these candidates elected who are important for what we do, you know, and then just stop. So you want to make sure that you follow up with your success stories and what you have done. That is really, really important. So make sure you tell them, do a scorecard. You know, the primaries, you know, are a great time to get involved. BIPAC is really pushing for people to get involved in the primaries. You can do a primary scorecard and a general election scorecard. And you can utilize both of those elections to get people really fired up and get them interested in the PAC. So make sure that you do follow up for both of those elections. Tell them who won and who lost. You know, just give them general updates. And again, tie it back to the PAC. So that's most of the information I have. Now I would love to hear your questions or ideas or thoughts and have any kind of dialogue. Anybody have any questions? Mm-hmm.
On the technology side, I suggested that we put a PAC, something about our PAC on our website.
Right.
I was questioned about that because not everyone in the company is eligible. opposition to that? Is that a problem that you know with other companies, or how do they handle that?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of information that you can put on there that's, you know, factual and that can be seen by everybody. So that could be one route that you could go if you were not able to password protect it or make it restricted to only your eligibles. There's a lot you can put on there. I mean, your supported candidates, your, you know, what a PAC is, what the PAC does, who the PAC board is. There's a lot that you can put on there. So perhaps they would allow you to do that. And then later on down the road, you can explore, you know, providing restricted access, whether that's via password restriction or something like that, to your eligible class where they could, you know, join online and see solicitory information.
Robert, does Enterprise still do that?
Yes.
Because it predates you, I don't think
Yeah,
it's
it's
possible.
restricted.
Yeah, so there's someone you can benchmark with, and when somebody else, you know, jump in to help out here, if you show, well, we do that, you know, volunteer, but there's somebody you can benchmark with who's been doing that for probably close to 10 years.
I don't know, I've only been there 3, but as long as I've been there, it's been
Yeah.
restricted.
Yeah.
I have 3 suggestions, only 2 of which are self-serving. So let me get the non-self-serving one out of the way first. Melissa rightly talked about doing a survey of your members. So some of you may be thinking, how the heck do I do a survey? A very easy way that costs no money is to utilize a service that we use called Survey Monkey, correct, David? And you load up your list of emails, you create the 5 or 6 or 10 question survey, you email it out, you know who responds, and when they respond, you see their responses, it'll collate it for you. Takes you half an hour at the most, and again, if you get the free version, no money.
Right. And Google has the same capability.
And I'm sure there are others too, just, you know.
Well, no, but that's free. You know, yes, I'm all about doing it free whenever you can.
When, you know, we publish the Pennsylvania report, and we often put in their reader surveys, and that's how we do it. Now on to the 2 more important ones, because they're self-serving. And talk about giving your PAC members, your PAC donors more access, more information. You know, we publish a newsletter every Friday called PEG Alert, which is our political update, okay? If you're members of ours, you get it as part of the deal. So a great way to get your PAC members more involved and educated is to send it to them. Now, one way you can do that is you can give us the emails, and we can send it through Constant Contact. What I would suggest is a better way is for you to send it to them. We send it out every Friday late morning. For you to create a little email tag list in your handheld or on your computer at work, and you forward it to them, so they know that it's a benefit they get every week. And you can put in there, this mentions candidate X who we've supported, or something like that. And that is a weekly reminder of the special things they get because they're given so much money per week or per month to the PAC. And the second one is, we have our dinner coming up on April 29th, and the regular ticket is a very good value at only $300, but we also have a VIP reception for another $100. You get a chance to meet Larry Sabato and get an autographed copy of his book. So if you're looking to get people to upgrade and to give them something that would cost you $100, but if they're really into politics would have a much greater value for them, to them, that's one idea, is to have them go to the dinner and also go to the VIP reception. And that way they can come back and talk to their friends and coworkers and say, I met this guy who you see on TV every week. This is the book you just did. We talked about whatever. That's another way to upgrade them if they're giving money or giving more money, or maybe want to give more money.
Those are great ideas, and I really like them because I am a very, very big supporter of not recreating the wheel and trying to do things with limited time and limited resources, which I know you guys all have those things limited to you. So anything that you can do that you'd be paying for anyways, but throw in a little bit extra to get people involved and giving more to your PAC. That's helpful, and that's an event that you don't have to create. You don't have to put it on. You don't have to worry about the logistics, but you can just piggyback on it and use it. Same with the PEG Alert. I think that's fantastic. You don't need to rewrite this information. Just forward it along and say it's a benefit that they get of being a PAC member or a PAC contributor, and you don't have to do anything except for forward it. It's great. So I love those ideas. Any other questions, comments, discussion? No?
If there's no, I will